I didn't mean to overhear. Honestly, I didn't. But I was walking past the study, just headed to my room, when their voices stopped me cold. My dad's low, dismissive tone was the first thing that hit me. "She's never going to get it," he said. "She's too much of a dreamer, too emotional. She's not cut out for this." Linda's voice followed, smooth and calculating, like she'd rehearsed every word. "She'll be better off without it. She's not even part of the family anymore. Why drag her into this?" I felt a chill seep through my bones, like the room had dropped 10 degrees in an instant. I wanted to move, to slam the door open and yell, "What the hell are you talking about?" But I stayed frozen, pressed up against the door, every nerve screaming at me to turn around and run. He was talking about me. My father, the man who had raised me, was saying that I didn't deserve any part of the family wealth, that I didn't belong. I tried to feel something, anger, hurt, shock, but nothing came. I just felt empty. Number. It was like my whole life had been a lie, and I was just too tired to care. "She doesn't even know what's coming," my dad said. The words cut through me. "She won't be included in the will. She's not one of us." And that was it. They were going to leave me out. Completely. I swallowed hard and stepped back from the door, my heart thumping painfully in my chest. This wasn't just about money. This was about everything. My family, my future, all of it. I took a deep breath, feeling something like resolve building in me, thick and hot. Number. This wasn't going to be the end of my story. Not if I had a say in it. I turned and walked away. But even as I made my way down the hall, my mind was already working, already plotting. I wasn't going to let them take everything from me, not without a fight. I didn't go to my room at first. I couldn't. My feet were moving before my brain had fully caught up, taking me down the hall, through the living room, and to the stairs. But I didn't make it far. I found myself standing at the threshold of my childhood bedroom, the door still cracked open like it was waiting for me to walk through. The room hadn't changed much, though I guess it wouldn't. It had always been a place I only came back to when I needed to escape, to hide, or to think. But this time, I wasn't sure what I was looking for. The room smelled the same, like dust and old wood, and that faint scent of lavender my mom used to keep in a jar by the window. I walked in slowly, every step feeling like I was sinking deeper into some pit I wasn't sure I could climb out of. My gaze flicked over the old photos on the walls, the ones that used to feel like me, and then to the desk in the corner, where papers and family mementos had been stacked high for years. There it was again, that feeling in my gut, the little things that never added up, the invitations that never arrived, the family gatherings where I was always busy or out of town, the cropped out faces in photos, always mine, and the missing estate paperwork. There were things I hadn't seen, things I should have been a part of. I tried to push it all down. I really did. But I couldn't stop the heat building in my chest, couldn't stop the words my father had said playing on repeat in my head. I wasn't part of the family anymore. I wasn't worthy of the family wealth. So what was I supposed to do now? I took a deep breath and turned my attention back to the desk, dragging open the drawer where my mom's things used to sit. I dug through old bills, photo albums, receipts, until something caught my eye, a folder wedged between two old notebooks. It was thick, and the edges were worn, like it had been moved around a lot. My stomach twisted as I reached for it, my fingers trembling just a little as I pulled it out. Inside, I found a copy of my mother's will. I blinked. That wasn't right. I'd never seen this before. She had passed years ago, and the will I'd known about had always been clear. Everything was supposed to go to my father. There was nothing for me, nothing, until now. I skimmed through the pages, trying to make sense of it, my hands shaking harder now, and there it was, buried in a small section that looked like it had been added after the original will was drafted. A trust fund, set aside just for me. My heart hammered in my chest as I read it again, the words blurring for a second. My mother had known. She had known what my father would do, what he was planning, and she'd left me something, a separate fund to be accessed only if I was ever cut out of the family's wealth. It was meant to protect me, a last-ditch effort to make sure I didn't end up with nothing. She had planned for this. She'd seen it coming. I wasn't sure whether to cry or laugh. It felt like a dream, like something out of a bad movie. But I didn't have time to lose it. I had to act. Fast. I grabbed my phone from my pocket, pulled up my banking app, and started the process of transferring the money. My fingers flew over the screen, a little too quick, a little too frantic. But I didn't care. The money wasn't even about the cash. It was about the control, about making sure my father and Linda didn't have the power to strip me of everything. I hit the final button, and the transfer was done. The money was in a new private account, far from their reach. I sat back for a second, staring at the screen. It felt like a weight had been lifted, but not in the way I expected. I hadn't won anything yet, not really, but I wasn't powerless anymore. I wasn't some victim in their game. This was the first step. I stood up and shoved the folder back into the drawer, closing it with a finality that felt like a promise. I wasn't backing down, not this time. As I walked out of the room, the house felt quieter, like the walls were listening, like everything was holding its breath. But I wasn't afraid anymore. I knew exactly what I was going to do next. I didn't stop at the desk. I couldn't. The folder had shaken me up, but there was still so much left unanswered. My mother had been a lot of things, but she had never been subtle. She'd always left clues, hints, little things to find if you were willing to look hard enough. Her old desk was one of the few pieces of furniture still here that hadn't been moved or replaced after she died. The drawers were stuffed with old letters, her favorite pens, and half-finished knitting projects. I ran my fingers along the wood, the smooth grain still familiar, but the feeling of it in my hands made something twist inside me. It was a place where I used to sit and talk to her, where she'd hold my hand and tell me everything was going to be okay. I didn't expect to find anything, but I opened the bottom drawer anyway, just to see what was left. At first, it seemed like the others, old receipts, some framed photos of family vacations, but then I saw it, a small hidden compartment at the back of the drawer. I pulled at the edge of the wood, heart pounding as it slid open, revealing a thick, worn envelope tucked inside. I yanked it out, my hands shaking as I tore it open. It wasn't just papers this time. There was a letter, and something else. A small silver recorder, the kind you'd use to leave voice notes. I took both items into my hands, sitting back in the chair, trying to steady my breathing. The letter was in my mother's familiar handwriting, the neat looping script that had always felt like her touch was still on the paper. My stomach flipped as I began reading, each word sinking in deeper than the last. Alex, the letter began, if you're reading this, then I know what's happening. I know you're being shut out, that they're trying to erase you from the family. I've seen it coming for a long time, and I'm sorry I couldn't stop it, but I've made sure you'll be okay. I sucked in a sharp breath. This was what I needed, what I'd been looking for. I've set aside a trust for you, one that can't be touched by your father or Linda. They may try to rewrite the family narrative, make you feel like you don't belong, but you do. You always have. This trust is yours, and it's only to be accessed if you're ever pushed out. Use it when you have to, and don't let them win. The words burned through me. Don't let them win. That had always been her motto, and now it was mine. I turned my attention to the recorder. My fingers trembled as I pressed the play button, and her voice filled the room. Alex, sweetheart, if you're hearing this, then you're in the middle of a fight, and I need you to be strong. Your father, he's not who he once was. He'll try to manipulate you, make you question yourself. But listen to me, Alex. You are smart. You are capable. Don't let him take everything from you. Her voice cracked, just a little, but then it firmed again. You deserve to be part of this family, and if they try to take that from you, you fight for it. Fight for yourself. I sat there, letting her words settle in. My mother, even in death, had known exactly what to say. She'd given me the tools I needed to stand up for myself, to fight. I wasn't alone in this. I stuffed the recorder into my bag and carefully folded the letter. Then I grabbed the trust paperwork, the legal documents that were buried in the envelope, and stuffed them all together, tucking them deep into my jacket. I wasn't about to lose them, not when they might be the key to everything. As I stood up and moved to leave, I felt something shift inside me. There was a weight on my chest, but it was different now. It wasn't the crushing weight of everything I'd lost. It was the weight of knowing what I had to do next. I wasn't walking away from this fight, not anymore. And I wasn't going to let them take what was mine. Dinner was a performance. I had known that for years, but tonight it felt like a cold slap to the face. The fake warmth, the practiced smiles. My father and Linda were doing their best to pretend everything was fine, to pretend I wasn't already a ghost to them. I sat at the table, pushing my food around, pretending to eat, while they tried way too hard to make conversation. So, Alex, how's school going? Linda asked, all sweetness and faux concern. Any new projects you're working on? I almost laughed. She wasn't asking because she cared. She was just filling the silence, trying to make it seem like she didn't already have plans to take everything from me. It's fine, I said, my voice flat. I didn't care about school anymore. Not when the future I'd always thought I'd have was crumbling around me. My dad looked over at me from the other end of the table, that tired look in his eyes, the one that always made me feel small. You know, Alex, you could be doing more with your time, he said, shaking his head. Instead of sitting around thinking up new ideas, maybe you should learn how to handle the family business. But you're too much of a dreamer for that. The words stung, but I didn't react. I'd heard it before, and I was starting to realize just how much he enjoyed belittling me, making me feel like I wasn't enough. But the truth was, I had already been planning my own future, a future that didn't include him or Linda. Linda added her own 2 cents, her voice dripping with condescension. You know, darling, you have to have a certain mindset to run something like this. It's not all about passion and creativity. Some of us know how to take the reins. Her smile stretched too wide, like she thought I was an idiot. I forced myself not to react, but inside, I was screaming. You have no idea who you're dealing with. They didn't stop there. The conversation turned to the company, to finances, and I caught the glint of something in my father's voice that set my nerves on edge. They were talking about transferring assets. My eyes flicked between them, their voices so smooth it made me sick. Linda, we need to make sure the asset transfer goes through by the end of the week, my dad said. His tone clipped, like he was discussing something routine. It's all in the paperwork, Linda replied, nodding. The fewer questions, the better. I kept my gaze down, staring at my plate, but my pulse was racing. I knew enough about the family business to understand what they were saying. This wasn't just about transferring assets. It was about moving things in a way that benefited them. Things that didn't make sense. The kind of transfer that only worked if you were hiding something. I swallowed hard, feeling my anger bubble up. But I kept my mouth shut. For now. When dinner finally ended, I stayed seated while my father and Linda cleared the table. I could hear them in the kitchen, their voices low, but their words still carrying over the clink of dishes. I didn't hesitate. I reached into my bag and pulled out the piece of paper I had taken earlier, the injunction to freeze the family assets until a full audit was completed. I slid it across the table, watching it move like a slow, deliberate challenge. The legal document rested between us, stark and undeniable. I could feel the change in the air immediately. My dad's footsteps faltered as he came back into the room. I didn't look up. I couldn't. I had to stand firm, even when everything in me wanted to curl up and hide. What's this? He asked, his voice cold now. I finally looked at him, holding his gaze. It's an injunction, I said, my voice steady, even though my heart was racing. I'm freezing the assets until the business is audited. It's time someone looked into what's really going on around here. Linda stepped forward, her eyes narrowing, but I didn't flinch. You can't just— I can, I interrupted, my tone sharp. And I will. My father's jaw tightened, his gaze darkening, but he didn't speak for a long moment. Instead, he just stared at the paper in front of him, like it might suddenly disappear if he stared hard enough. Finally, he muttered, You're making a mistake, Alex. Maybe I was, but I didn't think so. I don't think I am, I said, the words coming out quiet but firm. I think I'm doing exactly what's necessary. He looked at Linda, his expression shifting, but I didn't care. I wasn't afraid of him anymore, and I wasn't afraid of her. Fine, he said finally, his voice clipped. We'll deal with this later. I didn't need him to say anything more. I knew what he meant. The battle had started, and I wasn't backing down this time. I couldn't wait any longer. I was done with the games, done pretending everything was fine. The next morning, after I'd barely slept, I walked into the kitchen and found them both already sitting at the table. My father and Linda, their voices soft, the kind of low murmurs that felt rehearsed, as if they thought I hadn't already heard everything I needed to. They stopped talking when I walked in. My father barely glanced up, but Linda's eyes narrowed, her fingers tightening around her coffee cup. Alex, she said, her voice smooth but forced, you're up early. Everything okay? I didn't answer her. Not right away. I just stood there, breathing in the stale scent of coffee and eggs, feeling my heart race. There were so many things I wanted to say, so many words I wanted to throw at them, but I'd learned the hard way that my father didn't care about feelings. He only cared about control. And I wasn't going to play nice anymore. I need answers, I finally said, my voice cutting through the tension. Answers? My father raised an eyebrow, clearly annoyed. About what? About why I'm being excluded from the family trust, I shot back, refusing to back down. You and Linda are trying to push me out. I want to know why. Linda's face instantly softened, the fake concern slipping into place. Oh, Alex, she said, her voice dripping with syrupy sweetness. You've misunderstood. We would never— Don't, I cut her off, the word harsh and final. I'm not some child you can manipulate anymore. I reached into my bag and pulled out the amended will. The pages felt heavy in my hands, but I wasn't shaking. I slammed them down onto the table between us, and their eyes both snapped to it like it was a grenade. This, I said, tapping the paper, is the reason I'm asking. My mother's will was altered before she died. She set up a trust for me, one that you've clearly been hiding from me. I met my father's gaze, my voice steady. And I'm guessing you didn't tell me about it because you didn't want me to find out. The silence that followed was thick, heavy with everything unsaid. My father's face changed. The cool, collected expression he always wore slipped, just for a second, to reveal something darker. Something defensive. His hands clenched on the table, and I saw his knuckles turn white. Where did you get that? His voice was low, cold, barely a whisper. Does it matter? I asked, leaning forward. It's mine, isn't it? Linda shot me a tight smile, but her eyes were sharp now. You're being paranoid, Alex. There's no reason to jump to conclusions. This is all just business. She laughed, but it was thin, like she was trying to cover up something she wasn't quite sure how to hide. Your father's just trying to protect you. You've always been too emotional about these things. I almost laughed, but it came out as more of a snarl. Too emotional? Is that what this is about? I'm too emotional to handle things the way you want me to? Because that's always been your excuse, hasn't it? That I'm not cut out for the family business? That I'm too much of a dreamer? Linda's smile tightened. You're overreacting. You don't even understand. I understand enough. I pulled the recorder from my bag, pressing the play button without hesitation. My mother's voice filled the air, clear and firm. Alex, sweetheart, if you're hearing this, then you're in the middle of a fight, and I need you to be strong. Your father. He's not who he once was. He'll try to manipulate you, make you question yourself. But listen to me, Alex. You are smart. You are capable. Don't let him take everything from you. I didn't look at them when the message played. I couldn't. It was all I had left of her, and it was everything. When the recording ended, I placed it down on the table, my eyes locked on my father. You see, I said softly, she knew. She knew what you were planning, and she made sure I wouldn't be left with nothing. There was a long silence. My father's face twisted with anger, his jaw set. Linda stood up, her chair scraping across the floor. She looked ready to say something, but I held up a hand, silencing her. You think I'm going to back down? I asked, my voice sharp. You think you can intimidate me into just letting you steal everything from me? Because it's not happening. Linda's eyes flashed with fury, but I didn't flinch. You have no idea what you're up against, Alex, she spat. You're making a huge mistake. I met her gaze, unblinking. I don't think so. I stood up then, grabbing the papers and shoving them into my bag. I've already started, and I'm not stopping now. My father didn't say anything more, but the look he gave me was colder than anything I'd ever seen from him. It was like he was suddenly seeing me for who I really was, a threat, and for the first time in years, it felt good. I didn't have to wait long. By the time I got back to my room and dropped my bag on the bed, I could hear the voices downstairs. My father's low, clipped words, Linda's sharp, insistent tone. They were already plotting, already thinking of ways to retaliate, and it didn't take long for them to come for me. The door to my room swung open, and my father stepped in, Linda trailing behind him. His face was a mask of fury, something darker in his eyes than I'd ever seen before. Linda's expression was all false concern, but there was a sharp edge to it that sent a chill down my spine. Alex, my father said, his voice low and controlled, but I could hear the anger simmering just beneath the surface. You've made a big mistake. I don't think so, I replied, standing my ground. I wasn't backing down now, not after everything. Linda crossed her arms, a tight smile on her face. You're jeopardizing everything, you know that? This family, the business, it's all we've built, and you're trying to tear it apart over a few misunderstandings. All because you want to play victim. I didn't flinch, didn't show a single crack in my resolve. I'm not the one tearing anything apart. You and Dad are the ones hiding everything, treating me like I don't matter. You've been siphoning money out of the business for years, and now you're playing me like I'm too stupid to notice. But I noticed. I pulled out the documents I'd gathered, the spreadsheets and bank statements showing transfers, irregular withdrawals, and hidden accounts. I slapped them down on the table, my fingers curling around the edges like I was holding their sins in my hands. You've been funneling money from the company into your personal accounts, haven't you? I've got proof. I leaned forward, eyes locked on my father. And don't even try to deny it. Linda's face turned a shade of red that almost made me smile, but I kept my gaze steady, focused on my father. He didn't move, didn't say anything right away, but I could see it in his eyes. He knew. He knew I had him. You're threatening to go public with this? My father finally spoke, his voice dripping with disdain. You don't have a clue what you're messing with, Alex. If you pursue this, you'll lose everything. Your relationship with us, everything you've ever known. Are you really willing to risk all of that? I stared at him, my chest tight, but my voice never wavered. I've already lost everything, Dad. You made sure of that. You and Linda. I paused, letting the words sink in. So yeah, I'm willing to risk it. I'm willing to burn it all down if that's what it takes. Linda's eyes flashed with anger. She took a step forward, trying to intimidate me with the full weight of her height and the fake calm in her voice. You're ungrateful, Alex. After everything we've done for you, this is how you repay us? By trying to destroy the family legacy? The words stung, but they didn't break me. I had nothing left to lose, and that made me more dangerous than any of them. You think I don't know what's going on? I shot back, my voice sharp. I'm not the one trying to destroy anything. You two are the ones rewriting history. You're the ones trying to erase me from everything that's mine. I paused, taking a step closer to my father. You didn't think I'd figure it out, but I did. And I'm not going to let you keep doing this. I pulled the papers in front of them, my eyes narrowing. You think I won't go public with this? You think I won't expose the way you've been bleeding the company dry? You're wrong. I will. I've got all the evidence I need, and I'll make sure everyone knows what you've been doing. Linda took a breath like she was about to explode, but my father raised a hand, stopping her. He looked at the papers, his face hardening, but there was something else there too, something I couldn't quite place. He didn't speak at first, just stood there, silent. It was almost like he was weighing his options. Finally, he met my gaze, his voice cold. You've made your choice, Alex. Don't expect me to back down now. If you keep pushing this, you'll regret it. I'll make sure of that. I didn't flinch. I'm already regretting the years I wasted thinking I mattered to you. The silence stretched between us, thick and suffocating. But I wasn't backing down. Not anymore. I could see my father's face tightening, his anger simmering just beneath the surface. But I knew I was right. This was it. The moment I'd been waiting for. The moment I finally stood up for myself, and I wasn't going to let them take it away from me. I'll fight this, I said, my voice steady, resolute, and I'll win. Their faces told me everything I needed to know. They hadn't expected me to go this far, hadn't expected me to have the guts to call their bluff, but I had. And now, nothing could stop me. I sat in the sterile office, the smell of freshly brewed coffee mixing with the faint scent of old paper. The table between me and the legal team felt like a barrier I could barely see past. I wasn't sure what I expected, but this wasn't it. I had imagined it would feel more official, maybe, more intimidating, but instead it just felt like a bunch of adults in suits trying to figure out how to play by the rules. The rules that had been set up to protect people like my father and Linda, people who always knew how to twist things to their advantage. The lawyer, a middle-aged woman with short, silver hair and glasses that looked too big for her face, flipped through the papers I had given her. She didn't look at me, just focused on the documents, as if they would give her all the answers. The silence between us felt thick, like they were waiting for me to say something, anything, that would show them I was just another scared kid who had no idea what she was doing. But that wasn't me anymore. You've got the evidence, she finally said, glancing up at me. There's no question about that. These financial statements, the altered will, the illegal transfers of assets, it's all here. You have a strong case. I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. But it didn't bring relief, not yet. So, what happens now? Her fingers drummed the table before she picked up another piece of paper. Well, Alex, the situation is complicated. Your father and stepmother are powerful people, and they'll fight back. This case could get ugly, very ugly. Public scrutiny, media attention. It'll all be part of the process. You need to be prepared for that. I met her eyes, and something inside me hardened. I wasn't afraid of them anymore. I wasn't afraid of anyone. I'm not backing down. She nodded slowly, like she was seeing something in me that I didn't quite understand yet. Good. You're going to need that resolve. She leaned back in her chair, tapping her pen against her notepad. Given the nature of the evidence, I'd suggest we file an injunction to freeze the estate's assets. We need to stop any further transactions until everything is fully reviewed. I hadn't even considered that. I had just assumed this would be about a fight for what was mine. But freezing the assets? That was bigger than just getting my fair share. It was about control. It was about making sure they couldn't cover their tracks, couldn't just bury the truth like they always had. Yeah, I said, the word sharp, final. Freeze it all. She slid a few pieces of paper toward me, the official-looking documents filled with legal jargon. I read through them, the weight of the words sinking in. This was real. I wasn't just dreaming anymore. This wasn't some fantasy I'd play out in my head. This was my life. I'll sign, I said without hesitation. My pen felt heavier than it ever had in my life, but I signed anyway, each letter feeling like a step towards something I couldn't go back from. As I handed the papers back, the lawyer gave me a brief smile, almost like she was impressed. You know what you're doing, Alex. You've got a chance to take control of this, to reshape your future. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt a rush of something I hadn't felt in a long time: empowerment. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I wasn't just being dragged along by forces I couldn't understand. I was the one making the decisions now. I was the one with the power. As I left the office, the weight of the papers in my hand seemed lighter than before. I didn't care that the world outside was busy, indifferent. I didn't care that the people I'd once trusted were already planning their next move. I finally understood the real purpose of my mother's trust. It wasn't just money. It wasn't just a cushion to fall back on. It was a shield. It was the thing that gave me the power to rewrite the family narrative, to finally have the chance to be more than the victim in their game. I walked out of the building, the sky stretching wide above me, and for the first time in my life, I felt like I was in control. Not just of my future, but of my own story. And no matter what came next, I wasn't going to let anyone take that from me. The courtroom felt suffocating, like the walls were closing in with every breath I took. I wasn't nervous. I hadn't been nervous in weeks. But the weight of everything I was about to face, everything I was about to expose, pressed down on me like a 100-pound stone. My father and Linda sat across the room, trying their best to look calm, composed, but I could see the tightness in their faces. The slight shift in Linda's posture, the way my father's fingers drummed on the table. They were nervous. They were finally seeing me for what I had become. I was no longer the daughter they could ignore. I wasn't some naive girl they could manipulate anymore. The judge, a middle-aged man with a no-nonsense expression, looked down at the papers in front of him. The air in the room felt thick with expectation, the buzz of whispered conversations all around us. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears, but I didn't look away. I couldn't. This wasn't just about the money or the estate. It was about reclaiming my place in my family's history, about taking back what was mine and making sure they knew I wasn't going to let them erase me. Linda was the first to speak, her voice high and too smooth, like she was trying too hard to be convincing. Your Honor, we have reason to believe that Alex is, well. She paused, her eyes flicking toward me, the fake concern dripping from her words. Unstable. She's clearly emotional and unable to manage the trust effectively. Her behavior has been erratic, and she's made baseless accusations about my husband and me. I almost laughed. I didn't even need to respond right away. Let her dig herself in deeper. But I knew what she was doing, trying to paint me as the unreasonable one, the one who didn't deserve any of it. The judge looked over at me, waiting for my response. And I didn't flinch. I stood up, the papers I'd gathered stacked neatly in front of me. I had everything I needed to expose them, to prove that they were the ones in the wrong. Your Honor, I am not unstable, I said, my voice clear and unwavering. And I'm certainly not the one making baseless accusations. I have facts. I pulled out the documents, the financial records that had started it all, and set them down with a small, controlled thud. These documents show clearly that money has been funneled out of the family business into personal accounts, the same accounts that my father and stepmother have used for their personal benefit. I didn't even look at my father or Linda when I spoke. I didn't need to. I knew they could feel the weight of every word I said. I could feel the judge's gaze on me as he skimmed through the papers. Linda shifted uncomfortably in her chair, but I didn't take my eyes off the judge. He looked up at me after a few moments, his expression unreadable. "And what about the recording?" he asked. I'd been waiting for that question. I pulled out the small recorder, and when I pressed play, my mother's voice filled the room, loud and clear. "Alex, sweetheart, if you're hearing this, then you're in the middle of a fight, and I need you to be strong. Your father, he's not who he once was. He'll try to manipulate you, make you question yourself. But listen to me, Alex, you are smart. You are capable. Don't let him take everything from you." I looked up, meeting my father's gaze for the first time since I'd walked in. He was staring at the table, his jaw clenched, hands fisted so tight that his knuckles were white. But he didn't say a word. Linda, on the other hand, shot me a look of pure venom, but she kept her mouth shut. The tape continued, my mother's words echoing in the courtroom. "This trust is yours, Alex. It was meant to be a safeguard, a way to protect you from whatever they might do. Don't let them erase you from the family. You belong here. You always have." I could feel the room shift. The judge's expression softened, but only slightly. I knew it wasn't enough to make him turn in my favor right then. There was still the weight of their influence to contend with. But I didn't care. I'd already made my point. I stood tall, my voice steady. My mother wanted me to have this. She set this up to make sure that if I was ever cut out of the family, I'd have the power to protect myself. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I'm protecting myself. I could see Linda's mask slip a little, her eyes flashing with anger. My father remained stone-faced, but I knew him. I knew the cracks in his composure, and that's when I realized something. This wasn't just a fight about the trust or the money. This was about taking back control of my own story. They had tried to rewrite it, to erase me, but I was done being passive. I wasn't going to let them decide who I was. The judge finally spoke, his voice loud and firm. "I've reviewed all the evidence presented, and it's clear that Alex's claims have merit. The amended will is valid, and the evidence of financial misconduct cannot be ignored. Given these facts, I am ruling in favor of Alex. Your father and stepmother will no longer have control over the estate." I sat back, the weight of the words sinking in. It was over. They were done. I didn't look at them. I didn't need to. I knew that the battle was far from over, that they would fight in ways I couldn't predict. But this moment, this was mine. The judge's ruling was just the beginning. Now I had the power to shape my own future, and for the first time, it felt like I was finally in control of my own story. The courthouse doors swung open, and the cool air hit me like a breath of fresh air, a sharp contrast to the suffocating tension I'd just left behind. My feet felt heavier than usual as I walked out into the daylight, but I wasn't tired. I was something else. It was like a new weight had settled on me, one I was ready to carry. The sun felt different, too, brighter and warmer than it had in years. The world didn't stop when I walked out of that courtroom. The hustle of cars, the buzz of people going about their business, it all carried on as if nothing had changed. But I knew something had shifted. I had shifted, and for the first time in a long while, I was standing on my own 2 feet, completely unafraid. It wasn't about the money. It wasn't even about the estate. It was about the fact that I had taken control of my life, that I was no longer going to be the person they tried to make me. I wasn't the victim. I wasn't powerless anymore. A few weeks later, I walked into the boardroom where the family business had always been run, my father's empire, his legacy. It was quiet, too quiet, as I stepped into the room where he used to sit. His chair was still there, empty, and for a second, I felt a flash of something like grief. It wasn't for him, though. It was for the life I could have had, the one he'd stolen from me for years. I couldn't change that, but I could change everything from here on out. I sat down in his chair. It didn't feel strange or like I was pretending to be someone else. It felt right. My mother had always intended for me to be here, to lead, and now I was. I looked around the room. The same faces were still here, still watching, still waiting to see if I was going to crumble under the weight of everything. But I wasn't going to. Not anymore. This was mine. This was my family's legacy, and I was going to rewrite it on my own terms. After a few moments, I stood up, walking toward the desk that had once been my father's. I didn't feel anger this time, just resolve. I didn't need to scream the truth. I didn't need to fight for it anymore. The truth wasn't something I had to yell to the world. The truth was something I was going to live. I didn't need anyone to tell me who I was. I knew exactly who I was now. The room felt still, the weight of my decision heavy in the air. And for the first time in a long time, I felt the power of it. I wasn't just sitting in a chair I had once been told I didn't belong in. I was standing firm in my new role, reclaiming what was mine, and taking back the story I had once been written out of. And for the first time, I didn't need to explain it to anyone. The truth was no longer something I needed to shout, it was something I was finally living.